You're live. You're live. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your sensei Al Bob. I am your sensei, your griot. Tell you a story, and I have to say, guys, you did a pretty good job. It's been raining raining and snowing and sleeting and icing since Christmas, and today it really rained hard this morning. I woke up about 7 a.m. as I normally do. Took care of business and went back to sleep. Woke up around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and it stopped uh, raining, and we've had intermittent sun. Not bad, not bad. Yesterday, I asked you to make it sunny here, and that I would tell you stories about the old crone. Sunray, good to see you, buddy. And so I walked the 2 miles up to my neighbor's porch and sat here. And sun, it looks like, in about 5 minutes we'll be in sun. I mean, it's not raining, it's not snowing, but man, it is moist. It is like this is a rainforest, right? So it is wet. And even though things are dried out, I have really good drainage on top of the hill, and I spent a lot of effort putting in French drains and everything. So it would lead So I don't even after all of this rain, I do not have any puddles, right? And the roads are relatively pretty good. And I went out yesterday, and that's where you saw me. I was in somebody's parking lot off their Wi-Fi, and so here I am, right? And you've done a great job. It's not raining, and like I said, if the wind keeps blowing the way it is, we'll be in sun in a few minutes, and it'll be warmer because solar power is the way to go. Um, so I've been kind of going on and on and on about the reset, the big splat, whatever you want to call it, and you know,
David, what you know about it, huh? You know nothing about this. I don't have nightmares. You've been having nightmares. Yeah, he does. We all got PTSD. Come on, tell me. Look, just breathe. Come on. Come on, bud. Come on. There you go. There you go. Come on. I see ghosts, y'all. I see ghosts. What happens to all of us, man? Have you seen them too? Yeah. Dad come to you at night.
this is Spike Lee's movie, Five Bloods.
To me, every night. Now you talk to you like you talk to me. Come on. I don't think so. Come on. Come on. Go ahead. Get it out. Come on, get it out. Come on now. Fist up. Come on. Fist up, man.
Fist up, Bloods.
So, we are talking in the midst of yet another award season. A season in which your latest film, The Five Bloods, is getting a lot of
fresh
buzz
air
and some nominations. But already,
Terry
people
Gross,
are saying
she's a great
in some
interview.
regards
This
it's
is one of her,
getting stuck, like no Golden Globe nominations for you. It's this thing I keep seeing with you and your work and your art and the coverage of it is that besides making films that really speak to who and what America really is, there is this constant discussion over whether or not you and your work get their due. Are you tired of that conversation? Do you listen to that conversation?
No, I don't listen to that. I did at one point, but that is just going down a hole. I mean, I just look at Do the Right Thing. Considered American classic on all counts. That wasn't even nominated for Best Picture.
Driving Miss Daisy won.
Got 2 nominations. Daniello for Sal, lost out to Denzel for Glory, and I got an original screenplay. So we know what film won Best Picture, and no one's watching that film. I mean, very few people watching that film today. But also, in retrospect, the voting members of the Academy Motion Picture Art Sciences is more diverse now than it was back in the day.
Back in the day.
Do you think it's there? Do you think it's reached the point where it needs to be? We talk
truth is painful, I'd rather hear the truth than the lie.
Yeah. Mr. Lee, this was such an honor.
And morally responsible for provoking the events of the day.
But McConnell went on to defend his vote to clear Trump on constitutional grounds.
But in this case, the question is moot because former President Trump...
The question is moot.
Correct is, I think, vastly downplays the importance of the issue. The second thing that I want to underscore is that it's conceptually wrong to think of impeachment as an after-the-fact sanction for misconduct. Impeachment was designed as a prophylactic.
A prophylactic to put over a big Richard cranium. So, come on, son. Let's get a little warmer. So here we are, 6 minutes and 6 seconds into the show. There's 3 of you here, 2 thumbs up. Yesterday I was on for, I don't know, about 20 minutes, give or take, and it was more a PSA saying, hey, I'm going to start talking about the old crone, right? Get the audience together and, get them here. And the thing is, the old crone, what the beauty of the old crone is, it's a story that is timeless and that it speaks to today, right? And because it speaks to an individual who's lived, she graduated out of Cambridge's medical school in 2000 and 2000 and in 1909 or 10 or sometime before World War One. Then she went and served in World War One, and she was a doctor. And they said, "Oh no, you're a woman, you can't do that." So she volunteered for the French to be an ambulance driver. And she had all her doctor stuff, and she would go up to the front and take, save people's lives right then, and then take them back. And then the doctors in the safe zone would do things to the guys who would basically kill them, right? And, so instead of getting upset, she, embraced who she really was, right? And, as a little girl growing up before the 19th century, before the 20th century came around, when she grew up in the 19th century, and though she came from a well-to-do family, and her father loved her dearly, and she had no brothers, so she was the oldest, and he was, Scottish, Irish, Celt, Druid guy, but came from long family of wealth, and he was a lord in Scotland, and they had properties in Ireland, and so after World War One, she went back to Ireland to live in their lands, and that's where her farm was, way up on top of the mountain there near Tralee, and she went to Trinity because she loved the community, right? And she really got into the school there. The Druid, Alexander's library wasn't just in one place. It was all over the place. And the library of Trinity had become, after his death, a real depository of his writings and the really important things. They can go back to Greece. They went to Trinity before it was Trinity, and so she spoke. So my story of her goes back again to my grandmother, right? My Italian grandmother, because I did not know my Irish and German, my mother's family, right? And the only person I had other than my she had her brothers and sisters still in their little town near Watertown, and her great aunt, who basically, if you ever saw the movie It's a Wonderful Life, Mr. Potter, that was my mother's great aunt, who was the last of the Gilded Age wealth, and they had a lot of properties and power and things like that, but a lot of the people between the folks who stole it from the Indians in the 1690s to you know, the Spanish American War, basically spent all the money, right? And so she had to make it back. And what she did was she was like a really beautiful person. My mom was like, had her level of beauty. And after her brother, her twin, who she really, that's the only person she really loved, he died in the Spanish American War. Um, she basically wore black for the rest of her life, right? And she went, after the duly amount of time of sorrow, she still wore black, but, pretty racy black. Black's the beautiful. And she, within a year or so of her brother dying, she married one of the wealthiest men in the surrounding counties. He was a banker and owned lots of property. And he was in his 80s. And she was a pretty good cook. And she hired a number of chefs and basically cooked these amazing. This guy had gout, so he used to like to eat and drink, and then he was trying to not, and he married her. And basically, she murdered him with sex and very rich food. Within 4 or 5 months, he died. And before he died, she was very wise in business and had him sign a ironclad will, leaving everything to her, and not in a trust or anything, but she had 100% control of 2 banks, hundreds of properties, right? So now she's wealthy, not really rich, but is upper middle class, better than she was financially. And then she basically married another rich guy, same thing in another county, owned, basically the whole freaking county and a good chunk of the everything from Watertown over to the Great Lake, Erie, and a good chunk of the properties along the Erie Canal and the railroads. And he was really wealthy, like he was rich. And again, she sauntered up to him, laid herself to. Cloris Leachman just died, right? A lot of greats have died. Christopher Plummer, a lot of amazing people, and not all from COVID either, but a lot of really great people are checking out. Hank Aaron, and there's a movie where Leachman plays. I don't know if it was Young Frankenstein. They cut it out, but I saw this. Might be on YouTube where she is, dourly looking, but when she gets into her own room, she takes it off, and she's wearing this leather, and she had a nice pair of breasts, and this thing that really lifted them up, and really unbelievably, dominatrix kind of wear, and big, long, high heels. And I think that's why in Young Frankenstein, every time she would say, "My name is Frau Luca," the horse would go, because I think she was having sex with a horse. And not in reality, but as a character in the movie. And hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. And this is a show not fit for youngsters, or people of snowflake mentality. This is people. I just received a great video from Buddy in Australia or New Zealand, wherever he is, over there on the other side of the world. And it's a animation about this pirate. And it's kind of, a takeoff of Pirates of whatever that movie was. And it's hilarious, right? And this one guy's got a patch over his eye. And as a guy who grew up as a little child with a patch over my eye, I understand not having depth perception. He's walking across the room, and he keeps walking into posts, right? And he's at the bar, he gets his beer, and he gonna put it down on the bar. He does this, it drops, smash on the ground. So it's hilarious. And when I watched it, all I could think of that the characters in that movie were Buddy and me. It was Buddy and me on a boat with all these ghosts looking for a treasure. And my treasure I'm looking for here in Dreamy Dreamland is you. You to step up to in every day and every way take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. Right. So there's Clarice Leachman, and she's like in this dominatrix outfit, and she's got all of these snakes. Her like dominatrix outfit isn't really out of leather. When you really look at it, it's all of these snakes that are just curling all over her and like pleasuring her, and and she lies in this big bed, lies back, and like flays herself out and opens herself up, and the snakes are all over her, pleasuring her, and she sees herself in the um, mirror, and she's like getting off on watching herself getting pleasured, and above her is in change Harvey, what's his name, who was in Blazing Saddles, who played Snidely Whiplash, and and that is the illusion of that. I love Clara Leach because she got she did a scene, the Last Picture Show, Don Bonovich, the Last Picture Show, this middle-aged woman who's, her husband is, fooling around with the younger chicks, and so she tries to get a high school boy to take care of her, and he throws her over for, and she was a great actress. Because she played a zillion parts, never the same thing, never typecast, and went for it 100% every time I ever saw her. Even when she was in Mary's show and she was the nosy neighbor or the whatever she was, it was great. She was a great actress, and that's a real. Um, um, that's what being a human being's about. It's not wanting to be just the star, because she was never really the star until she really got older and people realized all the body of work she did, and it was amazing. After she did like Young Frankenstein, and she did Bogdanovich's film, and she got the little statue. People went back and looked, and it was like, wow, this woman really, 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 really is a great actor. It's like uh, the woman who was in all of Woody Allen's movies, who had all the kids with her, Mia Farrow. I saw her in Broadway Danny Rose. And, Woody Allen's always Woody Allen. And his movies are always his movies, and they don't really say much about him. And Woody Allen is a great example of a character who is the canary in the coal mine. His neuroses, his psychosis, all of that, right, is you know, uh, represents, our friend, the guy who bought my place. And he keeps, turning these things out, and it's always about him, and it's always about, how he's the best, all those muscles, and, da 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 da, boo ba da boo, look at this, look at mine. He goes, and it really just talks about his stuff, right? Which he throws everywhere and doesn't really take care of or care about. And same with Woody Allen. Johnny and Woody Allen are like two ends bookcase of that neurotic, and Donnie is right in the middle, right? And a bunch of other characters, the richest man in the world, Mr. Tesla and Mr. Facebook and Mr. You name it, all of those five guys who have more money collectively than 80% of the rest of the United States, and we still don't have single payer health care, and we still are, the richest country in the world, you know, and yet we have more dead people from COVID, more people sick from COVID because England, they didn't do such a good job, but they have, jabbed more people than all of the EU put together because they do have a national health system, which allowed them to, you know, um, be organized about the inoculation. And the only reason they didn't do too well is that they had a moron clown puppet as a prime minister, and still do. Mr. Brexit, and I'm going to bring it back to the old crone in that nothing changes. She was experiencing the same when she was younger, right? When England was still in its heyday, for a little island of, you know, 15 million people, they were ruling the world because they had technology, they had mass production, they had control over resources and finances. They have the Bank of, the City of London, which controls money on the planet through Mr. Rothschild. So my first meeting, the crone, the old crone, was basically not there in the Library of Trinity. It was when I was a young guy, when my grandmother, again, Italian, 100% Italian, her husband was, 100% Northern Roman. I mean, Roman as you can get. He had blonde hair and blue eyes and tall and handsome. And it's really interesting. As he got older, his hair went from blonde to black because it was getting gray. He didn't like it, so he went black. And he was, had one of the first women's beauty parlors. And how he got to America was he had a great practice in Rome. He was one of the leading barber surgeons in Europe, right? And if you ever see a barber pole and you see the red and white stripes, what that was the barbers were the surgeons. Doctors thought of surgery as like carpentry. All they do is cut you up and sew you back together, fix this, fix that. And that was the idea of what the human body was like, a door or a car or something that you just kind of fix. And my grandfather was more enlightened than that because as the barber, he made you look good. And the surgery really he did. He didn't bleed people, but what he was basically a plastic surgeon, meaning if you had scars or a cleft palate or a crinkly nose or anything that, made you feel bad about yourself, he would fix that, right? And so many wealthy people tried to get my grandfather to come from Italy, but why should he? He's living in Rome. He's the top dog. He's got a school. He's got barbers all over the place. He's doing well. He's got a nice couple of houses all over the place. Why does he need to leave Rome? Well, J.P. Morgan came to him and gave him an offer he could not refuse. I will give you X amount of money right off the bat. I will get you into America as an American citizen, and I will basically give you the keys to I own, with Colonel Waldorf, I own the Waldorf Astoria, and I have my, even though I have this big house on Fifth Avenue, I have the whole top floor of the Waldorf, and I want you to come visit me first. First client you have, shave me, right? Take care of me. And I'm going to give you one whole corner of the Waldorf facing Fifth Avenue, right? And I'm going to give you a list of the wealthiest people in the world to be the barber of, and they will come see you. And so he had that, and it had a mezzanine. That was, storage, or he really didn't use it that much, but you went up these really beautiful steps, and he had things he made, lotions and soaps and stuff like that. He was an apothecary of herbal type of things. Where did the sun go? Come on, son. Better not rain. Don't rain. Come on, kids. Get together. You did a great job getting it to be not rainy, snowy, sleety. Focus on getting it a little warmer and raining. Not raining, excuse me. Sunny, right? And keeping that nasty storm that's all around us. You've done a great job. Keep it away. I don't want, if it snows and ice again, I'll be stuck here until it's spring. And I don't want that. So come on, step up. So, and when my grandfather was coming over on the boat, my grandmother, she was from Sicily, not even just from Sicily, she was from the islands of Sicily. And now you have to realize the islands of Sicily are not that Italian. they are more Germanic, more Celtic, more Irish in a lot of ways, because they had Druids there on these islands. And if you ever seen one of the later um, Star Wars movies where Luke is on the islands and the girl comes looking for him, those islands actually exist in Ireland, just out in the ocean. But there are islands like that in Sicily with the same kind of stone buildings. They're called beehives because they had a lot of stones. They set them up in walls and lived in them and had thatched huts. And they would throw the bones out the window. And as their garbage got up to where the thatched roof was, they put a floor there, build the stones up, and put enough fast wood. So the beehives are these floor after floor after floor after floor of these stone buildings, roundish, and they have great harmonic energies to them. And that's why that scene where she goes into the basement of one of those buildings and she sees these two mirrors and she steps in it and there's like a zillion of them and she goes one way and she sees how her life's going to be in all those different portions, and that's like the shamanic Akashic record, right? And so that's where my grandma came from, and she had that in her. And both her parents were Druidic healers, scholars, and her mother was a real amazing herbalist. And so my grandmother picked up all of that stuff. But by the time she hit 17, she had it with living in a mud hut. She wanted to see. She knew the rest of the world was out there. So she and her parents were really old because they had her when they were like in their 50s, if not 60s. I mean, it was a miracle. Grandma was supposed to be born to these people, and they gave her everything that they knew and had, and so she packed her little rucksack and got one of the fishermen to take her to the things, and she worked her way from Sicily all the way up to Rome. Was in Rome and made some money, and she heard about my grandfather. She knew of my grandfather. My grandfather didn't quite know her because he was in different, up there. And so she got on the boat, not knowing he was on the boat. There he is. There's the boy. Hey, boy, how you doing? How's the snow? Come on, you're a brave lad. Go on to Texas. What has she been saying anyway? But enough of that, because I love you, John. You're a good guy. You're my friend. I never give up on you. I think you make great films. You're an amazingly talented guy. You can drums, guitar, filmmaker, all of them. You're just amazing, amazing, amazing. But what do you do with it? You have the best internet on the planet up there, and you could teach. You could teach. You could, get a job. I mean, every school is online. You could teach. How are you going to pay your bills? That's how you could. You could. You could really help people. Now, I love your videos because they're, they aren't what they seem to be. I don't even know if you realize what they are, but I mean, like that one you did snowboarding, right? And you had those jagged images of you all over the place, that was like represented better than I've ever seen split personalities, because basically that's kind of what split personalities are. It's when the logos or the entirety of yourself is broken by a tragedy and you splinter into little shards of mirrors, and then those shards either get dusted away and only one is left, or the shards pick up their own separate personalities and represent. And that's what your movies do. All your different characters are that. Truly amazing, truly amazing. But back to my grandma. So she made it on the boat, and John. So come on, get a life, be happy. If you I have a life. I live out in the middle of nowhere and still I have a life because people come and I help them. They tell me their stories and we talk and I try to, help them out and seem to do a pretty good job at it. And, and I write a tremendous amount, you could really do some great work on your YouTubes with your characters because you could look at what's going on and instead of talking about yourself, you could be there for other people by acting out situations, right? Instead of showing your muscles or, your shaved body or your Chinese uh, pancake makeup, you could. Well, if you miss your kids, buddy, go there. And I've said this, I don't know how many times I said it to you. If you want to reintegrate with your family, you have to be there. You can't do it from, 1,100 miles away or however far Texas is from where you are. Go there. And I told you this, I had a friend who was a musician, really good musician, really good. Um, they call it old time music now. He was, Scottish and he came from the South and he had all these amazing old, Appalachian tunes. And he kind of was, ripped away from that and brought to New York as a kid with his father looking for work in New York City. So he grew up in Harlem, and then to escape, he got into jazz. That was all around him, and so he became not pretty good, a really good musician. Went off to music school in Boston, came back, and then it was like the just before the Vietnam War, and he was uh, what's his name? Who's the guy who wrote all those songs, anti-war songs? He's still alive. Um, and they went crazy when he went from acoustic to electric. What's his name? Uh, what's his name? Anyway, that was my friend. He was right there with all those guys. But instead of being able to make that jump into the big time, he had this nice, he would go and play. He kind of went, it was a minstrel. He had more minstrel kind of thing. And so he went around the country playing in bars and places like that. He did pretty good, and the girls liked him, and he was having a good time, and in his 20s and 30s, and it kept him having to worry about anything because nobody knew where the heck this guy was at any time. So he never worried about the Vietnam War. But he got older and older, and then he came back to New York, and he became a good studio musician, and that was his career. And he got married, had kids, and then he started his career kind of jumped a bit to where instead of being the minstrel at bars, he was opening for people. And oh, I wish I could remember this guy. Who is the big John? You know him. Who's the big, uh, big? What do they call it? Back in the day, before, not before rock and roll, but it was everyone Kingston Trio. They played with stringed instruments, etc. And come on, guys, you got to work at keeping it not raining, right? So anyway, that guy opened for a pretty big band. So he was on tour with really big bands, right? And so and acts. So he's doing pretty good. He's getting more girls, and yeah, he's married, has kids, right? And he's having a good time. And his wife put up with it to a point where she couldn't, and she left. And she was French, right? So she went back, not to Texas. She left America, and they divorced. They had a thing. He's supposed to see the kids half the year, and she goes off to France, right, to live with her family. And she goes back to school, gets a gig. Her kids are somewhat older. They're like in middle school. They don't have it's that age, 9 to 14, and he's really missing his kids. So what does he do? He has his career going on. He's making money. He's on tour. He's got all these girls, and he decides he's going to make a left-hand turn, and he knew he had a real good ear for languages. He knew French because of his wife, and he also knew a few other languages, German and Spanish. And so, what do they call that music? It's like historical of the traditional motif, old timers. Anyway, so he went to Europe, got himself an RV, got his manager to get him gigs in Europe, and he would go around and play at these, festivals. He took a big step up, but he had made a lot of money, and so he's making still pretty good buck for Europe in the 80s, and he basically decides that okay, so he does a tour, has money, he books, winter's starting to come, so he books a spring summer tour, and he takes a, November, December, January, February, March off, 5 months, and he drives his RV to the town where his wife and kids are, and he goes to the police department with his little thing showing that he's the father of these kids, and that the decree of the divorce said that he could see these kids, and not only that, they should live with him half the year, and he hasn't been. Now he's coming to step up to the family, and this is about you, John. This is what you should do: step up. Stop hiding up there in the school, right? Because the school will, the thing about the school, it's not so much the building. The building is George Solonovich's manifestation of his vision of the school, right? And the beauty of the Hill, it will manifest whatever you want, but it doesn't know what you want, and it doesn't even know it can only read your energy. So tons of people went up there and just got drunk and stoned and had a terrible life, because that's all they could think about was their terrible life. So the Hill doubled down on that, right? I thought about how to help people, how to have go out into the world and be part of the world, and I did that, and it kind of threw me a curveball by having me take care of my parents, which was a good thing. I thought my parents would, they were 75, had nothing to do with my family whatsoever. And then I came back from Ireland in 1980, and my father had all my brothers and sisters worked for my dad, and my dad was like, had his thumb, all you have to do is click a switch on John, and he will go, my father, and that was pretty much the relationship. My brothers and not so much my sisters, because they didn't complain. They would just woo, and so I was off doing my own thing. Had nothing, I'd see him on Christmas, my mom's birthday, Easter. That was about it, once in a while. But when I got back, they were at war with each other. I had gone to school with a guy who's a shrink, and he, like me, became a pretty good shrink, but hated that whole institution. So he invented his own little, neighborhood. And what that was people who have family businesses and family issues. He was really good at negotiating that. So I came back, and it was like this war was going on, And so I went and got my friend and drew him into that. And my brother and who were the two biggest, warring parties, my oldest brother and my father, got him. And this guy's office was up in the South Bronx, because he didn't want anybody to be comfortable, right? And so, and plus he was a black guy. And so, and I told them that he was Jewish, and my father was okay with Jewish people, even though he was anti-Semitic. And so when he got up there, he was, already committed. He got there, and it was like the South Bronx. And, this place was in a building above a bodega. And so they would go there, and most of the time they'd be looking out the window, make sure their cars weren't getting stolen. But the guy already had everyone know that these parking spots are his. Don't mess with those cars. And he would tell them that, but they were still. So anyway, I came back, after this, and and once they kind of, you know, got it settled, and it was settled by, this guy was really good at pushing people's buttons. I mean, that's who I learned how to do it. I mean, I already knew how to do it, but he was really good at it. So he got him really upset, and then they were in one car. They didn't come separately. They came in one car, and my brothers driving on the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, and Robert Moses built this highway, from Queens to Manhattan to destroy the neighborhoods of these areas. Go look up Robert Moses on Brooklyn Queens Expressway and everything he did. Like when he built Jones Beach, which was great to get all of New York City onto the beach in Long Island, but he built the bridges from roads going over the northern state. There's these curves, not squares like this. So buses, they were you couldn't take a commercial commercial vehicle on this road, northern state, and so the bridges kept buses from being able to go there because they would smash into the curved part. So really, only people with cars could go to Jones Beach, which left out black and poor people. So, and going back to the old crone, that was the thing she hated that caste system of England and Anglo-America, right? And basically, America is stuck. That's our biggest problem. We're in a class and caste society. And John, you are the best example of the neuroses that comes from your parents are Irish and Italian, and they bred you, and those two very antithesis cultures. I mean, they're as far as you could get, but those two loved each other, and so they had 3 beautiful kids. Yet the cultural neuroses that your parents have, because of this caste system, basically spawned your, as Danica said, your body dysmorphia. And what does that mean? You don't like your body. What does that mean? You don't like where you come from. What does that mean? You are upset that you cannot fit in with. I mean, this is America. Everybody can fit in if you can fit into your own skin. And now my novels are basically go on and on and on about we are not our bodies. This thing is just a bag of water. This is 97% water. You're just a bag of water. This is just an avatar. This isn't who you are. And the only thing you really are is love's co-creation, right? So, John, once you can love yourself and not idolize a false god of shaving your hair off and using makeup and dyeing your hair and working out so you have big abs, it's like really good luck with that, buddy. Now I love you. You're my bud, and I don't give up on my friends. And I've had some pretty amazingly disgusting friends. I had a friend, Carlton Haynes. He was the first Marlboro man, and that's what he was like 007. I would go to these parties because I knew all these people, who would have parties, and really, the avant-garde. My Lisette Modell and Cartier-Bresson, they had a beautiful, amazing apartment on Fifth Avenue, right near Washington Square. They taught at the New School, and I studied photography with them, right? And so I would go to these parties with amazing photographers, Gary Winogrand, Hilton Braithwaite, Ouija, you name it. They were there, and there was I, and I was always the kid. I was like, in my early 20s when that went down. And I already had a pretty good portfolio. When I was 18, I was a newspaper photographer in High Point, North Carolina, which gave me a press pass, a national press pass. So I kept that thing forever till I lost it. And that would get me into stuff, and I would take really amazing pictures. And I had all these pictures. I worked at the Phil Maurice. I had all these amazing photos. That work got published in Rolling Stone, and there were a lot of rock and roll magazines. The internet has gotten rid of that. And then when I went off to I built my parents a house years and years later when I had a contracting business, $1 million house, cost them $60,000. And in the height of the 1986 economic collapse, which was worse because we lost 30,000 banks. That we went from 30,000 banks to like 12, right? And that's what that the 1986 savings and loan collapse was about. And my father was still able to sell that house that he paid 60 grand for, property and all, um, for $400,000 in 1986. That's like maybe $3 million today, maybe more. And he never gave me a nickel, but I was already going by then, right? And because I already, so the hand, and when I saw what my father did to my brothers and sisters, when I agreed to take care of them, right? And they were in their 70s, late 70s, and they had so burnt their bridges with everyone, their friends, their children. I was the only one left, and I said, sure, but I will only take care of you when you're nice, because you're not. I have spent very little time with you, and the only times that I remember is when you were pretty good, when you were fun. Both my parents had a really good side. My mom was a party animal. You get a few cocktails into her, she was the life of the party. My dad had this really amazing, over the horizon attitude, which, John, you should have. You know, my father could have been the poster child of John Birmingham, except he was 100% Italian. But he grew up where Italians were worse than black people. No Irish, no blacks, no Indians, no blacks, no Irish, no Italians. And so my father could have turned out like John, but he didn't. He could have turned out like John's parents, but he didn't, because he was like to the max with whatever he did. So his orneriness was like, oh my God. And his fun side was really amazing. So I made a deal with my parents. I'll take care of you the day you die, but we have to have a good time doing it. If we don't have a good time, and I won't even make a qualm, I won't complain, I will just not be there. My dad said, but what if I fall down a staircase? I said, it better be a good day for you, baby, because if you're not having a good time, I'm gonna not be there. And I'll know it before you know it. And I did. When they were like, I would pick it up a day or two before it would hit the fan, and I just wouldn't be there. And I wouldn't be there a week or two. And that's why I had places around Florida and other places to go, because I went into those little towns with my father's over the horizon attitude, endured myself to the neighborhood, just like here. People go, how can you live there? All those people, and it's just so. No, they're not. They're great people. Yes, they're people, we call them rednecks. The only reason they're redneck because they work real hard in the sun and they get a redneck. That's the only reason they're redneck. One of my neighbors came over one day and said, Al, what is this Antifa thing? And I said, well, it is guys who say they hate, capitalism and the corporate structure, and want to wreck it, just like Donald Trump wants to, drain the swamp. And he goes, yeah, well, I understand that. Well, I like that. I said, no, but they will take guns and beat people up. He said, well, I don't like that. He goes, I know a bunch of people who call themselves, the militia, and I think they're just a bunch of jerks because they don't work very hard, and all they do is get guns and shoot them off, and they can't even shoot. They don't go hunting, and they won't want to take other people's stuff. And if they come my way, so that's the folks in my mind. They have no political point of view, because it is through generations of their lives they've been let down, taken advantage of, and they realize they just got, it's their community, they got to take care of it and do the best they can. And so that's why I love living here, because it's this, and we're so far away from any city or town, like 40, 50 miles, that when rich people do, like this house here, the guy who built this, he built this thing in 1980 something, and on a cliff, right? And so, and what a moron, because, see all these trees around, when summer comes, they all have leaves. You can't even see what you can see now. It's like a dark hole. Whereas I live in a holler and I took all the trees up to the sides. So A, they wouldn't fall on my house, and B, I'd have a view and I'd have light. And this is a rainforest. If the trees are here, just like so, it hasn't rained now since this morning, and the rain has drained away and nothing's wet. But in the air, look how my coat is shiny. That's the moisture. Like so. And it's almost 50 degrees, but it feels like it's 30. If the sun was, I would be better off, but I'm not. So John kind of jumped in, and whenever he does, he kind of distracts me. Just like when I was telling you the stories of the old crone, and he would distract me, and you guys said, shut that guy up. So John kind of watches these shows all the time. And I'm pretty sure he's the troll who jumps in, and he thinks it's funny. And what's interesting about the internet, it's like the hill. It magnifies the energetics of the person, and so maybe we can do videos. Yeah, But John, you can't throw me out late at night. You can't threaten me with a hammer. You can't complain that I cost you money when you're making thousands of dollars off of what I do on your internet. And I have to have, artistic control of what I'm doing there, right? So, and that's just to begin with. I mean, we've had so many contracts. John and I have so many contracts that, and what's really interesting? So I've been on, as of last September, I've been on YouTube for 2 years. So now 2 years and how many months? 5, 6 months? Almost 3 years. And the first year of my shows went away. I don't know where they went, but they went away. And I don't know how, I didn't get rid of them. And I went on to, did my best to go into the YouTube channel, and it said right there that John Birmingham was me. Right? Had John's little picture, and he said, I'm, Sensei Al Bob. Now, I don't know how people could think this guy right here, Sensei Al Bob, is that guy who's pumping iron and shaving his body and dyeing his hair green and putting on white pancake makeup. Not really, So, but John Birmingham and I do have this connection, and when we do things together, it is, and it's just like Abbott and Costello, or there were a lot of teams. Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. John's Jerry Lewis, and I'm Dean Martin. I'm the cool guy with a cigarette, and a cocktail, and the tuxedo with a tie hanging off, and the girls hanging on my arms, just like Carlton Haynes, as I was telling you about, one of the original Marlboro men, right? And he was a New Yorker. He wasn't a cowboy, but he was cut he was amazingly good looking. And I met him at a party at Uda Hagen and her husband. What was that guy's name? He was a director. Anyway, they had a theater school on 10th and Bank. And I was their TD and their photographer and their psychotherapist and their masseuse. And I'd fix everything and do things. And what was that guy's name? Herbert Burgle, HB Studios. And they had a big building, right? And so I was at a theater school, and they lived upstairs, and that was a big, that was as big as the ground floor. And the top floor, they had little apartments that they would rent out. And the roof had a beautiful garden, right? And they had a nice backyard, too. So they would have killer parties, and I would go to all their parties and, read people's cards and their palms and massage their feet if they were pretty girls. And so I got to know a lot of people. That's where I met most of the avant-garde of New York at HB Studios. between Lisette Modell and HB Studios. And then I went to work for Andy Warhol at his factory on 16th Street in Union Square. Because it was an amazing electric. There were only really four really good electric supply places: Vica, 16th Street, and 33rd. 33rd was gigantic warehouse right in the middle of where all the skyscrapers, and that was a big union house, right? And they had a counter, but that wasn't most of their work. Most of their work, you know, architects would make up this list of stuff you needed to build this brand new skyscraper. They'd send it to those guys. They'd order it and have it delivered right to the job, right? So that was a big union house. And, you know, they did have a counter just for when you needed something and you were in Midtown. And all three of those places I had credit in. And you could not run a business because if you were going to buy a meter bank, you know, for like 12 apartments, well, that cost like $5,000. Unless you had the $5,000 to give them, and if you didn't have credit, you weren't getting that. But with credit, you got it, right? And credit wasn't like what the bank said or what the credit agent, because those things didn't exist. It was a personal relationship, and once you broke that personal relationship, you didn't have credit. So all of those places, because of Grandpa Stahl and Anthony Vigiano, who owned Vica, and Anthony knew my grandfather because he was a barber first, and he liked doing ladies' hair, but then he needed to get a job, and somebody got him a job. You know, let's see. John, what is it? Yeah, more than 1,000 videos. But like half of them went missing. Let's see. You can see. Penn and Teller. I really think it's because John, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis is considered by the French a genius. Penn and Teller are just great performers / magicians, and you're not a magician. Sorry. Anyway, so that has been my life. My life is serve, loves co-creation, not myself. I do. This bag of water is my avatar, so it is kind of somewhat open to being accessed by my hormones. But as I get older, that kind of goes away. My little sex drive, my hormonal sex drive, that's kind of gone. But the more that's gone, more women are interested in me, which is really amazing because they find, who is this guy? And then, wow, he's really interesting. Wow, he's helping me become who I really want to be. Wow, he's like now my best friend. Wow, he actually, yeah, he's like 40 years older than me, but I'm starting to get interested in him. So, and that is the kind of dance that is really, that's what the Greeks talked about. And eros, is that kind, and that's what the Vedics talk about. They have all those pictures of guys doing crazy, postures, but no, it's this slow little dance, right? And the fact that there are 4 or 5 women around the world who keep getting more and more interested in me. 3 of them are kind of in America. And have come and visited me, and we've had great times. And what they like best is they can, get almost anything, except for large sums of money. I can make them feel good in so many different ways, and I'm not really asking anything of them, and they really like that, and they really like the fact that I'm, committed and they're honest, and they know about everybody in my life, and so but they know when they're with me, I'm with them. So, and they like that because they're at a point in their life they don't want a committed relationship either. Either they have been in one forever, and you know, or what it is. So, um, Plug Nuts, what you up to, buddy? It's entertaining. Bipolar, homeless, megalomaniac. It's entertaining. Yep. Anyway, Bob Dylan. That's the guy I was thinking about. My friend who went to. He was a compadre of Bob Dylan's, but he never made it, and then he kind of did, and then that like killed his marriage. His wife went off to France. He kind of put his American career on hold and went to France and did concerts there. And he basically went to the town that his wife and kids were in, went to the police and said, "Hey, here I am. Where can I park my RV near to my wife's house so my kids can come visit me?" And they said, "Well, it says here that you can, 160 feet. So 160 feet from her front door, you can park your car. And that street, you can park things there. It's not a main thoroughfare. People park their cars out in front of their houses. So yeah, park it. Not a problem. Nobody complains. Not a problem. Except if she complains, we don't care." So he did, right? And he had, basically was sitting out in front of his RV in a lawn chair with an umbrella over him. He kind of made a little front thing there. He parked where there was a chunk of grass, not just the sidewalk. And hey, Zero Infinity, how you doing, buddy? Hello, everyone. How's everyone today? Doing pretty good. It's not raining. It's clouded up. I thought you guys were going to be able to make it sunny again, but it's getting cold. We've been doing this for an hour and a half. And so anyway, long story short of that guy. He's there. Kids come back from school. They're walking down the sidewalk, and there's their dad, sitting there drinking a cup of tea, reading a book in a lounge chair, a couple of chairs for the kids, and an umbrella. And they come and, "Oh, daddy, daddy, daddy," and they start kissing each other, and they stay there. And his wife had scoped him out, and basically called the police, and they said, "Nope, this guy can stay there all he wants." He came to us, he showed us your divorce citation, and he can stay there. Sorry, you can't do anything about it. And if you do any violence, you're going to jail. We like him; he's a nice guy. We don't know you. So she came out and said, "Okay, I guess can I come now?" No, 160 feet. Okay, not a problem. The kids, So they would come home, spend an hour or two with him. He'd help them with the homework. They would go home for dinner, and then he had to sing. So, weekends, Saturdays with he had a car, attached to his RV, and he would ride them on little trips. And he was showing them an amazing, great time instead of being stuck home with the mom, which they had been for the last 4 years. And they really liked their dad. They were a little upset that their mom took them to France. And so, after, 6 months, he went back on tour, and he came back another 5 months and then went on tour. And by that time, the oldest one was of age in France. And went to a judge herself and said, "Listen, I want to be with my dad. He's going on tour. I'm already in independent study. I will do all the homework and mail it in to my teachers." And the judge said, "Fine." And so his oldest daughter went on tour with him, right? And she had been learning how to play a French instrument that you put on your lap. And And they played, and she really loved playing in front of audiences, and that became her career, and she's pretty good at it and pretty famous now. And so after 2 years of him doing that, his wife, because she wasn't a real jerk, basically said, okay, it's all good. Come in for dinner. And so they did. And she never got a boyfriend. She had a girlfriend, and that was another issue. It wasn't his issue; it was her issue. Anyway, so everything went hunky dory, and they went, and he died in 2014, and the kids are all grown up, and a couple of the boys, when we had the homesteading, came and stayed with us and the father in New York for a visit. And so anyway, Zero's great. And that's why I love you, Infinity. You're normally great. I mean, you used to talk a little down in the dumps, but you realize, why be down in the dumps when you can be great? And not like, ooh, it's really starting to blow and, ooh, getting cold. So I might. This has been an hour and 6 minutes. So anybody got something interesting to say? We're gonna, boop. I wish it was more like Penatella. Yes, that would have been interesting. Yep. But it might be. John has come a long way from when I first met him. But he's still, because he only thinks of himself. Even when he's thinking of others, when he's going on about Jesus and everything, he's talking like, he's going to heaven and everyone's not, because he's talking about Jesus. It doesn't work out that way. Because heaven and hell is right here. It's not underground. Heaven's not up there. Our heaven and hell is right here, right now. Our earth is the Garden of Eden, if you haven't noticed it, right? And that's why I'm in the deep green, because I'm in the Garden of Eden. It's a little nippy right now, and I think I'm gonna, call it a day, because it's I have no idea what the temperature is, but I'm starting to get nippy. So I love you guys. Again, focus on sunny, beautiful weather. What did you eat tonight? What are we gonna eat tonight? Vegetables. That's what I've been eating. There are two pretty good supermarkets, Save-A-Lot and Slaughterhouse, where just before they have to throw stuff out, they knock the price. Like this bunch of vegetables. Like I bought 20 mangoes yesterday at this one supermarket for 95 cents. I mean, they were perfect. People, oh, they're too squishy. Oh, they got black spots. I bought a ton of bananas. I bought a bunch of asparagus that kind of turned white. Well, you pay extra in France for that, And so, and I luckily bought a bunch of those vegetables before we had the big snow apocalypse. We got really cold, and I don't have no refrigeration, so I just kept it in my car, and that was great, So I still got a lot of veggies, a lot of potatoes, a lot of onions, still have cabbage, and I still have a couple of things. I have no idea what they are, but that's what I'm eating lately. It's about your actions. And whatever, John. So anyway, God bless you all, and make it sunny, make it warm here, right? Make it focus on no more snow, no more. I mean, we've had so much frigging rain the last week. Luckily, it's not been snow. I thank my blessings of that, because it would be on top of this house, and no more snow, no more ice, because if it gets icy, I can't get out of here. And that was, I mean, it was pretty good. I had enough interesting books to read that I hadn't read, and I had written a good 60 pages to my novel that I'm working on. And it's called Our Legends Anthology, right? And I actually started writing that 2 years ago. And so that's kind of what it is. And that's why it's an anthology, because it's a bunch of. So if you want to go read the clipboard version of it and my other short stories and my other essays, go to xratted.blogspot.com. That's xratted.blogspot.com. It's also called publishing. And you want to get a hold of me personally, go to the dudeawake42 at Gmail, right? And I want to thank you guys for helping me out there on my PayPal, and I know everyone's hurting, and people send me $2 and $5, and that's usually just what it takes to keep my electricity on. I mean, I really, really thank you. I believe this way more. This life is science. Can't label, explain this. Society is full of lies and deception. Yep, exactly. And it's a science of love, Uncle Pugnuts. And the deception, is of our own making. I'm really naive. I believe everyone what they say, but I'm a firm believer in what Ronald Reagan said: trust but verify. Because I can read people like a book, I basically, and that's why John's my friend, because he's does people. I can't believe what he's done. How can you, why? Because he's not a bad guy. He does really bad things to me, and he is mean to me, and he's cruel to me. But in essence, I knew that. And so when he does those things, he does it to himself. And that's pretty much the essence, Pugnuts, of what goes down. Well, religions try and sell love, and and gang, no one can take your eternal soul. Sorry, because they call it an eternal soul for a reason. And why we have these avatars that we're in is to learn. So if you die a scumbag, you're going to come back, like an earthworm or whatever worms live in feces, and then you'll work up from there. But you're not. Everyone's getting to go home. Sorry, that's how it's going to work. And so the more you try to justify what you do because you love Jesus and no one loves Jesus like you do, sorry, that's not going to help you out. It's what you do, So, John, you have 2 children that, when you have children, the rest of your life is about them, not about you. Pretty much all you got to do is look at that video of John's when his son Roland was a baby, and they take him out in the snow in his onesie, right? And that video isn't about their child. Their child is like more or less a new pair of shoes or something. Because once you cut to John, he's dressed up as a woman, doing an act, the kid was just a doorway into the act, So, what can I say? John's, I don't give up on friends. Like my friend Carlton Haynes. Man, that guy's the biggest jerk. Everyone, why do you hang out with that guy? He's such a jerk because he had done a lot of stuff and he had a perspective that no one else did. And because I was his only friend and that I never gave up on him, he appreciated that. He understood that. And so even though he could be a jerk, I could overlook that. And the same with John. John is he has a perspective that I really appreciate. And he can be a jerk, and he can treat me really mean, and threaten my life by throwing me out in the middle of the night, in the middle of winter, and with me no place to go, and I can't see. Yeah, that's it's like a little off the hook, but it really, when that happened, I had an amazing journey. I mean, every time you threw me out, I would have an amazing journey, which was way more fun than listening to John say the same thing over and 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 over. And I could keep going on, but I won't. And so, but he's my friend, and um, I have great hope that he will come out. Because he's not John is not what psychotherapists would call, in the professional sense, crazy or batshit. Excuse that bat mierda, but he's neurotic. We're all neurotic. We live in a psychopathic world, and depending on how awake you are, is what level your neuroses is. And so if you understand that your life is not about then you can help people, and that's what I hope I'm doing in these shows, because I tell stories in a shamanic frame that resonates with the inside of you, not the external. I'm not shaving anything. I'm not trying to look better. I'm not hiding my face because I don't think it looks good. I'm an old guy. This is how I look. This is it. So I do my best to love everyone there, even John Birmingham. You would not do that. What wouldn't you do, John? Well, if you love your kids, John, why aren't you with them? Why haven't you been with them for the last, and all you'll give us is complaints and excuses. I gave you a really good story about my friend who overcame complaints and excuses and got his family back because he stepped up. Let's see you step up, John. That's what I really want you to do: is step up and get a life. And not a make-believe life, because you got a lot of great stuff in you. Like I said, you got this great internet. I mean, he's got this. We had a person named Tim who is amazing, professional at everything he does. He has a communication business. He wanted to run it from his space to the basement, the ground. At the school, and he put a gigantic microwave antenna on top of the school and beamed it down to where he had access to the internet. And so the school has internet access better than what any internet provider has. I mean, he's got a big pipe, right? And so he can do things on the internet most people can't. So why doesn't he, right? He could be, he could get, everyone's got a job on the internet. John could do that. John feels anxious about being around people. He's got he's got a degree in filmmaking from a prestigious, a bachelor's degree from a prestigious college. He's got a master's degree in filmmaking from a prestigious filmmaking school in California. And he's got a lot of experience. He could get a job like this if he wanted to. Well, he would have to fit into that thing, but he could do it from the school, so he wouldn't have to be uncomfortable about being around people. Does he do it? He's had at least 4 or 5 years to do it, and not really. And now this pandemic came, and he could really do it, and really good. Now his kids are old enough, and he has a divorce decree that says he gets those kids half the year. Those kids aren't in France. They're in Texas. If he wanted them to be with him, he could do it. Are they? He's not. So the little statement where I love my kids is questionable, because if you have kids, that's the rest of your life. If you're a good parent, that's the rest of your life. And that's a kind of well-being. I mean, around here, the people who are really good parents to their kids, they're old now and they got grandkids, and it's really sweet to see their kids who are in their 30s and 40s bring the grandkids, and now a couple of them have great grandkids, and they're all in good shape because those parents, they were economically squeezed, but they did everything they could to make the kids' life, not with toys and stuff, but with examples of their really good nature and of them working hard. right? So, well, that's my last thing I say, and uh, uh, a prop. Yep, a prop. Yep, that's pretty much everything in John's life is a prop. Just look at his videos, especially the one where he goes around and I just got a new this and look at my when he got his new phone. Oh, it's like God said don't have false idols, and that smartphone was like he had it in the box and he took it out and ooh, no, sorry. John, I love you, buddy. Come on, step up. Go to Texas, stay there. Not now while it's freezing, but when spring comes, go there. Get a job there. Get a place to stay there. You don't have to stay with them. Just being in their town is close enough. When they were here in Roanoke, you had how many years to really be a father to them, but you weren't. The year that they were here, that I was with you, the only time you went to see them was when I tricked you to go to their house. So anyway, but that's why I love John. John is, again, the canary in the coal mine, the poster boy of American culture. That is our boy. And I don't regret a minute of being there because I got an education. And it was fun. I had a great time. Every time he threw me out, 32 times he threw me out over a year and X months. About a year and 5 months I was with him. And then, right, and then he begged, because, he was making, when I did the old Crone thing, it went viral and 70,000 people. Did I get a nickel of that? Yeah, you're costing me money. Even though I kind of cooked every meal for him and was his shrink and da-da-da-da-da. I was still having a good time because he's my friend. I tried to motivate the most positive thing I could, but at a certain point, I stopped going there because I was enabling John's bad habits. So, just not there, And then he begged and begged and begged, and I said, okay, I'll come and visit. Okay, then maybe you can stay and we can go back. And I said, yeah, well, baby steps. And I get there. I went there 5 times to visit. And each time he threw me out. I mean, the last 3 times, I didn't last more than, 3 hours. One time, I didn't last more than an hour. He threw me out in 27 minutes. So, and that was the last time I really, visited was a year and a half ago as of September. He threw me out, and that was the one that was like late at night, couldn't see anything. My eyes weren't doing too good. And, at night I can see okay, but as soon as someone shines a light in my face, I can't see for 2 or 3 minutes. So getting down our driveway, which is suicidal, I knew that road every square inch because I cleaned it, with Inga. I raked it. I cleaned out the culverts. I knew every square inch, so I could like tiptoe with my car down that road. But once I got on the hard time, once I got on the country road, dark, not a problem. I could see pretty good. But as soon as the car came at me, for about 40 seconds to 2 minutes, I couldn't see anything. Pretty dangerous to drive on a county road that does this. And I said, John, why don't we just wait till sun comes up and I can say, no, no. So I drove to a place where my phone worked, and I knew I could safely stay there. And I called up everyone I knew in town to see if I could sleep on their couch. Well, everybody was out. It was Friday night, and everybody was out. And a friend of mine called me up and said, hey, I'm going to a great party. Where are you? And I explained to where I was, and he goes, I'm going to come there with a friend. You can get in my car. He'll drive your car to the party. And I said, okay, sounds good. And it was a party way up in Floyd, and it was this really rich lady who had bankrolled the anti-pipeline thing, and it was about 300 people. She had a wedding tent and a couple bands, and we camped out on her property, and it was a beautiful, late, middle September still warm, like 70 degrees at night, and the sky was full of stars. And she had catered tons of food, tons of great beer, tons of whatever you wanted, tons of people. I had a great time. I knew most of them, and read everyone's palm and read their cards. We just had a great time, and the party lasted for 4 days. Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Everybody went home around Tuesday. It started to sprinkle out, um, Monday-ish, but you could stay there until Tuesday. You had to be going by Tuesday, 1 o'clock, and that was a great party. Now, I would not have gone to that great party if John hadn't thrown me out because of his anxiety. So every time he threw me out, I would have an amazing adventure of that nature. And some lasted weeks and weeks and weeks, right? Hey, Mr. Mike, Lightside, good to see you. Anyway, so now it'll be interesting to see every time I sign off. It's now 1 hour and 25 minutes, and I'll maybe talk no later than 1 hour, 30 minutes, and 30 seconds. But virtually every time I look at a show, I end it, end system, or end stream, I hit that. And then the analytics come up. It shows how long I was on, how many people watched, and then it shows the collective time of it, right? And then it shows how many thumbs up, right? And it also shows not only the chat, but other things. So a day or two, and then, I leave and I go on, right? And then a day or two later, when I can get back to the internet and I look at that show, and it'll show, and I will have left, like right now, there's 8 thumbs up, right? And there'll probably be 30 or 40 people have watched, right? And I will look at that analytics the next time I look at it, and it'll say, like, I have 4 thumbs up and 12 thumbs down, and it'll say that instead of the 30 or 40 people that it said I watched, it will say only 25 watched. So who does that? Who has the capability? The only guy I know who has the bandwidth is John Birmingham. And that guy, he understands the internet better than anybody I know. He really does. I mean, whenever he does a show, why so many people watch his thing? Is that he doesn't, like me, I just put up a stupid name to it, but he puts them in categories. He then, the other thing, there's the title and then the description. He puts in code there. So it connects to, and every time I go look at one of his shows, he always has a commercial on it. So he's getting a cut of that. I don't get a commercial. And I'm fine with all that. I'm really happy, because that was not any of my intent. My intent was that this would be, a shamanic ceremony on the internet. And every show I do, it is. It touches you all that way. That's why you keep coming to watch. Yeah, you like the stories. Yeah, you like this, that, and the other thing. But when you end up with it all, you have this feeling right here, like, whoa, I feel changed. I feel different. And when John comes on and watches and interacts, that's great, because I hope it is changing his heart to the better. So he will be able to stand up and get a life. He will be able to stand up and be a parent to his parents, because the more he's not a parent, the more his children are suffering. Because a child without a father, that is, I don't know how many, and when I worked as a shrink, I was like a shrink in training. So I worked at all the things that most of the guys I worked for didn't want to do. I worked in jails. I worked in, schools, orphanages. They weren't called that. I worked for, courts. I worked, you name it. All the things, they got credit for, but they didn't want to do themselves. They got to take off their taxes, but they didn't want to do it themselves. I do it. And because that's why I learned stuff. That's why I saw things. And the real reason I stayed with John was I learned a great deal. And thank you, John. And I feel like I gave John, helped him out, helped him see things and to get over certain habits. And, and he's a lot better for my presence at that school. And hopefully, when I talk to him here on the old show, that he let's see, what's happening, Buddy? You talking to Buddy out there? And so you guys talk to each other that don't look up at the chat, right? I still have no idea how any of this works. Every time I hit go live, I'm like, thank you, God. I have no idea. Anyway, so I'm going to go now. Oh, look, it's just where I want it to be. 30:30. Okay. I love you guys. And again, next time it's sunny, I'll even walk the 2 miles to here. No more snow, no more ice. Spring is on its way. I love you guys.